Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Prospect Charter School's Algebra 1 course. Today we're going to be going over section 9.9, the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is actually just complete the square, only with its general case. So when we do this, you will understand why the quadratic formula is really hard to remember, and also why we are going to be singing. So I hope you brought your singing voice today, because you are going to be singing in class. And because I didn't bring my singing voice today, as you can tell, because I sound like a frog, I'm going to have the master of singing herself, the one who taught me the song to remember the quadratic formula, as a guest speaker on today's episode. So yes, you are going to be taught by the person who taught me. Alright, so the first thing we are going to do is we're going to do the general case of complete the square. We know that our standard format is 0 is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. Now we're going to use the complete square method using nothing but letters. Alright, so to begin with, we are of course going to get that c onto the other side. So we would start by subtracting c from both sides, and we'd have negative c is equal to ax squared plus bx. Sorry about that. So from there, we need to add our special 0. We need to get rid of this a first. To get rid of the a, we divide both sides by a. So now I have negative c over a is equal to x squared plus b over ax. And if you'll remember, we take our middle term, divide it by 2, and square it. And that is the number that we're going to be both adding and subtracting when we do the add 0 portion. So let's find out what that number would actually look like. We start out with b over a, and that's being divided by 2, and it's being squared. Well, to do that, I think we first have to turn this 2 into a fraction of 2 over 1. So I have b over a divided by 2 over 1, and that's being squared. And when you divide by a fraction, what do you do to the bottom fraction? Yep, you just flip and multiply. So this turns into b over a times 1 over 2, all squared, which becomes something much more manageable, b over 2a squared. So I'm going to be both adding and subtracting b over 2a squared. So plus b over 2a squared minus b over 2a squared. Now once we do that, do some basic arithmetic. We know that we want to get the negative version over on the other side, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to add b over 2a squared to both sides, so that leaves negative c over a plus b over 2a quantity squared is equal to x squared plus b over ax plus b over 2a squared. Now, doing some fancy pants algebra, I know this always goes into a perfect square format. That format is whatever this thing is and x. So I'm going to have x either plus whatever this is or x minus whatever this is. In this case, because I have a positive is dominant, I'm going to be adding. So this turns into x plus b over 2a quantity squared. On the left-hand side, we've got a lot of work to do here. Alright, so I've got a negative c over a. He's going to be left alone. But I'm going to have to square this b over 2a squared. So that becomes b squared over 4a squared. Now I've got to convert those and get a common denominator between these two. So I've already got an a. In fact, I've got two a's on the right-hand one. I've only got one a on the left-hand one. I have a 4 on the bottom, and I have a 1 on the bottom on the other one. So I'm going to have to multiply that left one by 4a over 4a so that they have a common denominator. So 4a times negative c becomes negative 4ac. And then 4a times a becomes 4a squared. And we still have that b squared over 4a squared. And that's still equal to all this junk that was on the right-hand side. The quantity of x plus b over 2a, quantity squared. Now I combine my fractions on the left, and when I do that, I get negative 4ac plus b squared over 4a squared. Now I don't like the order of that. I like to have my squares first and then my other stuff later, so I'm going to rearrange that to b squared minus 4ac, and that's all going to be over 4a squared. And of course that is set equal to x plus b over 2a, quantity squared. Alright, now after that, what we need to do is we need to take the square root of both sides. So I take the square root of the right and the square root of the left. Note when I do that, that's really the plus or minus version of it. If you take the square root of something squared, it's always the absolute value of it, so you don't have to worry about that. In fact, that is one definition of the absolute value of something, is the square root of something squared. Alright, so here we go. Let's see, we have plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared is equal to, and then over here we have x plus b over 2a. So I'm going to subtract that b over 2a, and I'm going to be left with x is equal to negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. Now here's something really neat. This portion on the bottom, that 4a squared, is actually a perfect square. So I can actually take the square root of that and turn this into a fraction. So when I do that, I get, oops, really big blocks of black lettering. Okay, we have x is equal to negative b, come on computer, there we go, negative b over 2a, plus or minus, and on the numerator we're going to have the square root of my numerator on the inside, which is b squared minus 4ac, and that's going to be over the square root of 4, which is 2, and then the square root of a squared, which is a. And what a coincidence, the denominators match. So I can, of course, combine these two fractions. And when I combine them, I get x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Ladies and gentlemen, you have your quadratic formula. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I'm going to put that down here. I don't know why that 2a came with it. Shame on you. Okay, so here's our original, and we're going to make it a little bit bigger so that you can see it better, and then we are going to highlight it because it's somewhat important. It's actually really important. It's actually one of those beautiful formulas that we see all the time. It's so important that somebody wrote a song about it. A Canadian song. Yes, that's right, it's Canadian because it's probably going to end in A, eh? It's alright, we still love our Canadian friends. So, I will try to sing it for you. But it's gonna be bad. Alright, so here's how the song goes. Alright. X equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's my attempt at it. Now let's let the lady who's actually way better at this sing it for you. So I will now turn over the camera and video and everything else to the lady who taught me.
Okay, I learned this from my algebra teacher when I was in like middle school. So here it goes. X equals minus b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And she wouldn't let us leave the classroom until we all stood up and sang it. It was really embarrassing. There you go.
And if you think Mr. O'Neill is even more merciful than her algebra teacher, you are mistaken. Because tomorrow, when I'm actually in class with you, you're going to have to stand up and you're going to have to sing it. And you are not going to be allowed to leave until you have sung it. And by everyone, I mean everyone. We'll go one at a time through the class and everybody sings it. Don't worry, we'll sing it as a class first. So here's how it goes. X equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I would recommend singing along with the video as we sing it together. And again, my voice is really bad, so please forgive me. I love being sick. Alright, everybody as a class together, and let's sing so loudly that Mr. Mickelson from across the hallway comes in here and tells us to be quiet, because nothing would make my day more than to have Mr. Mickelson come into my classroom and say, "You guys are singing too loud, be quiet." So let's go ahead and try that. On 3. 1, 2, 3. X equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
1, 2, 3, go. X equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ta-da!
Alright, now let's try it without it being on the board. X equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Alright, now let's see it in action. Let's assume that we are given 0 is equal to 4x squared minus 7x minus 13. Now what we need to do is we need to solve this equation. To solve this equation, we use the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula, as you have sung several times before now, is x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, when I'm working with a formula and I'm plugging stuff in, the first thing that I do is I always plug stuff into parentheses. I also need to label what my a, b, and c values are. So I'm going to put down an a b, and a c over here as a note as to which one is what value. The a is always the number in front of the x squared. So in this case, the a is equal to 4. The b is always the number in front of the x. So in this case, that would be negative 7. And the c, which is of course the luckiest one because it has no x's at all, is in this particular case the negative 13. Why is he negative? I don't know, because if you didn't have any x's, I think you'd be pretty positive. Anyway, the lucky number negative 13. And now I just plug them in, one piece at a time. Now, when I plug them in, I always plug them into parentheses. So the first thing I do is rewrite the equation with parentheses for all of the locations where I'm going to plug something in. After I've done that, I start plugging them in one at a time. Oops, that kind of wasn't flat enough. There we go. So I'm going to start with the b value. My b value is negative 7. It also appears in two locations, up front and as the first number inside of the radical. So I'm going to go ahead and plug those in. Negative 7 and negative 7. Next up would be my a value. Now my a value is positive 4. It appears in two places, as the first number next to the 4 and as the variable in the bottom, or the unknown quantity in the bottom. So I'm going to put 4s in those two locations. There's a 4, and there's a 4. Now with that, I have one remaining. Yes, the lucky number 13. It's in the C location. There's only one. We plug it in. Once we've done that, it's now just a matter of arithmetic. Remember your order of operations, grouping symbols, exponents, multiplication, addition. and take it one step at a time. It looks daunting, but if you take it one step at a time, it's actually really easy. I'm going to start here. Negative 7 is a positive 7. On the inside, I have an exponent, negative 7 squared. That's 49. Then I have negative 4 times 4, which is 16, times negative 13. Now that's a big number. That's one that I can't quite do in my head. So I'm going to pull up my handy-dandy calculator. As soon as it comes up, we can move on. Come on, handy-dandy calculator, wake up. There we go. There's my handy-dandy calculator. Wrong one again. Hate when I do this. Okay. Here we go. And here's my calculator. Okay, so it looks like I'm going to do negative 4 times 4 times negative 13. When I do that, I get 208. So I know this is plus 208. Again, this is over 2 times 4, which is 8. Doing a little bit more, we get 7 plus or minus the square root of 49 plus 208. Well, that would be, let's see, 57, 208, 257. Now it's going to be all over 8. And then, normally, I would be done right here. But because this is a demonstration, I want to show you every last piece of it. So we're going to assume that we have to estimate to the nearest hundredth. So when I do that, I would have two pieces. I would have the one where we have plus the square root of 257, and one where we have minus the square root of 257. Now, doing these, we first have to find out the square root of 257. Blowing out my handy-dandy calculator, we go 257, and we want to find the square root of that number. So we go square root of 257. And it tells us that the square root of 257 is 16.031. Now, because I'm rounding to the nearest hundredth, on this one I'm actually going to round to the nearest thousandth, because I know that as you go along, the more estimates you make early, the more inaccurate it becomes later. So I'm going to round to the nearest thousandth to begin with, and then after I've done all the arithmetic, then I round to the nearest hundredth. So this is going to be 7 plus, what was that, 16.031. Alright, 16.031 all over 8. And on this one, it's going to be 7 minus 16.031 all over 8. Once again, I'm going to go back to my calculator to make sure I get my arithmetic correct. So I go 7 plus 16.031 divided by 8. And there I get 2.878 or 2.89. So this one would be 2.89. And the other one, I'm going to do 7 minus 16.031. And then divided by 8. Oops. Sorry, let's try that again. 7 minus 16.031. There we go. Divided by 8. Sorry, my calculator can be a little slow here. So I get negative 1.1288. Rounding to the nearest hundredth, that would be negative 1.13. So negative 1.13. Note how we get two answers, just like in every other parabola that actually has some. That's going to be normal. You should get two answers. If you get the same answer, that's fine too. That's a good thing. That means that you really have two times where you cross the line instantly, and sometimes you're going to be taking the square root of a negative number. Now, we all know what happens when you take the square root of a negative number. It don't work. So, one quick note before we call it a day. Note, if the square root of b squared minus 4ac turns into a situation where you're taking the square root of a negative number, then you have no solution. Alright, and that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the guest speaker / singer. She was awesome. And now it's time for your Before You Go work, which will appear instantly on your screen. Ta-da! Before You Go work is section 9.8, hashtags math rocks, can't take the square root of a negative number, and of course, I love to sing. Also, numbers 1 through 29 odd, 33, 35, 39, 41, 45, 47, 51, 53, and 54. Alright, good luck, and have fun.